Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can we turn that volume down slightly? Right, okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee. My name's Caleb Tomlinson. I'm the councillor for Bamber Bridge West, and I am the chair of the committee. Committee members and members of the public are reminded that this meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. And if you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public who has registered to speak, when I call you, you'll have 4 minutes to speak. You come to the table here, press the speak button, introduce yourself and make your representations. Voting will be undertaken by the electronic system. Yeah. And once the results are complete, Taz will give us the results. I'll begin with some housekeeping. If you have mobile phones with you, please put them on silent. Okay, we're not anticipating a fire drill this evening, so if the fire alarm does go off, the fire exits are behind you and we meet on the car park. Okay. Please note that this evening's item number 10 has been withdrawn from the agenda. So if I can now ask everyone to introduce themselves, beginning with the young lady to my left.
Good evening, my name's Tasneem Safdar, Head of Legal and Procurement.
Ben Story, Democratic Services Officer.
Chris Lomax, Councillor, Wantleydale East.
Wesley Roberts, Councillor for Buckshire and Wood, and tonight I'm substituting for Councillor Matthew Farnworth.
Good evening, it's Councillor Phil Smith. I represent New Longton and Hutton East.
Sorry, Chair. I'm Councillor Keith Martin. I'm from Middleford.
Councillor Peter Molyneux Sandra in Walton Ward.
Councillor Hayden Williams, Leyland Central.
Good evening, Councillor Mary Green, Moss Side and Ridge Hall.
Good evening, Councillor Elaine Stringfellow, Gloucester Colwood.
Good evening, Janice Crook, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Chris Sowerby, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Development Management Team Leader.
Good evening, Lisa Mathewson, Senior Planning Officer.
Good evening, Catherine Thomas, Planning Manager.
Good evening, Elizabeth Hindle, Head of Planning and Enforcement.
Okay, thanks very much everyone for that. Item number 3 this evening, do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Keith Martin.
Item number 6 for predetermination, as I've already voted in this against this in the public domain. Thank you, and I'll leave the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Hancock.
In item 6 as a member of Birmingham Town Council, and I'll leave the meeting while this is being discussed. Thank you.
Any other declarations? No, okay, thanks very much for that, ladies and gentlemen. I must say it's a first this evening, I think, at this council. We've got a sitting mayor with us this evening and the previous sitting mayor on the committee this evening. Thanks for attending, gentlemen. I'm sure you're really, really busy. Okay, item number 4, minutes of the meeting held on 25th of April 2024. I need a proposer, please. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Stringfellow. If you weren't at the meeting, we're going to the vote now. If you weren't at the meeting, you need to abstain on the minutes. So if we can go to the vote, please. Okay, Taz?
Those are approved, Chair.
Okay, I have taken legal advice. I am allowed to sign those minutes because I'm tonight's chair, so I will do so. Okay, item number 5. Catherine, do we have appeal decisions?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have one appeal decision which has been received since our last meeting, and that's for Chain House Nursery on Chain House Lane in Preston. And the application involved the demolition of polytunnels and the redevelopment of the site for 4 bungalows. The site lies in the green belt, so the inspector had to conclude whether it was inappropriate development in principle and the impact on openness. And there is an exception in the NPPF for limited infill within the green belt. And the inspector concluded that although the proposal was limited development, in this particular circumstances, given the characteristics of the plot and its location, it couldn't be considered as infill development. And the inspector concluded there was harm to the purposes of the green belt, it was inappropriate, and there was harm to openness, and therefore the appeal was dismissed. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Catherine. More good news for us. Okay, we'll move swiftly on to agenda item number 6, which is 55 Liverpool Road, Penwortham. Chris, if you can introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members will recall that this application was brought before the Planning Committee in April and was deferred to allow officers to report Penwortham Town Council's response and for greater consideration to be given to the interrelationships between the proposed flue vent and neighbouring residential properties. The application relates to the vacant ground floor of a 2-storey semi-detached commercial premises fronting Liverpool Road and from Penwortham District Centre. On the first floor is a taxi booking office, and the adjoining property comprises of a jeweller's on the ground floor with a residential first floor flat above. Planning permission is sought for the change of use of the ground floor to a hot food takeaway, together with the installation of a flue vent to the rear. The proposed flue would have a diameter of 0.5 metres, with the top being 2.1 metres below the roof ridgeline. The proposed extraction flue would be located on the 2-storey outrigger on the rear of the building. The adjacent premises at 57 Liverpool Road currently operates as a beauty salon on the ground floor, and the first floor previously operated as an architect surveyor's studio, and we understand is currently being marketed as a residential flat. This is a view from the position below the windows on 57A towards the outrigger of the application premises. A distance of 7.5 metres would be present from the first floor window on the adjoining flat to the position of the proposed flue, with the existing 2-storey outrigger on the rear of the premises intervening. The application is accompanied by an odour risk control assessment report. Since the deferral of the application, a site meeting has taken place with environmental health, and the location of the windows on the neighbouring properties were noted. An addendum consultation response has been received which reiterates their position of not objecting to the proposal as detailed in paragraph 11.14 of the report. Whilst not according with the requirements of policy E4 in terms of the current retail provision within Penwortham District Centre, the proposal is considered to accord with the NPPF and would enhance the vitality and viability of Penwortham District Centre by bringing a long-term vacant unit back into use. There are no objections to the proposal from any of the statutory consultees, and for these reasons and those contained within the report, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the imposition of conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that presentation, Chris. Okay, we have Mr. Andrew Jones wishing to object to this application. Good evening, Mr. Jones. If you like to take a seat, press the speak button and you will have 4 minutes to make your representations, okay?
Good evening. My name's Andrew Jones. I'm a chartered surveyor. I have several interests in this application. I am a Penwortham resident and have been for 45 years, and I have expressed and exercised considerable interest in the local community. So I have an interest on that basis. I also have a interest on the basis that I am the freeholder of number 57, directly adjacent the application site, and I am landlord to hairdressers and a beauty salon immediately adjacent the proposed hot food takeaway. I would just like to clarify, I was unable to make the last meeting because I was away on holiday, but there were a couple of points or several points that require clarification, which hopefully will allow the committee to come to what I consider to be the only sensible decision on this application, and that is refusal. The first point is South Ribble Planning had a constructive notice of the presence of a flat or in the first floor to number 57. Application was made for a prior approval in October, and in December, under the hand of Elizabeth Hindle, I received confirmation that prior approval application was not required and that flat user was permissible. And the second point was that the South Ribble planning officer, Chris Sowerby, was also had constructive notice, because on the 11th of March I sent him an email with photographs annotated to show proximity of the proposed extract terminal to opening windows to the upper flat in number 57. And I raised issues of concerns as to nuisance, smell, noise and loss of amenity for not only the residential occupier, but also my tenants who have what I would consider to be slightly more sensitive businesses in respect of hair, beauty and so on, which are not generally aided by the presence of hot food smells and so on. The second point was, I noticed from the YouTube record of the meeting, was the statement, the apparent lack of appetite for the commercial unit. I take this to task. I believe this is incorrect. During the year when that property remained empty, I personally fielded well over a dozen inquiries from various parties over the period as to who had the unit, who was available to let it, etc., and who should they contact. I also understand South Ribble itself, through one of its officers, made inquiries for the possibility of rental as a pop-up shop for recycled school uniforms, but they were unable to get any sensible answer from anyone as to whether the unit was available. There is certainly an appetite and demand does indeed exceed supply in Penwortham, for the very reason that Penwortham-Liverpool Road has experienced a renaissance and is very much in demand for eateries and minibars and so on. This is contrary to possibly the trends in other areas where shops are boarded up, etc. There is no desperation for occupancy of any use. This premises will go once it's on the open market. I believe that this present application is speculative.
Jones, you need to tie up. You've had four.
I've had it. Have I
seconds. You have.
Okay. I just urge the committee to reject the application, thereby recognising the duty of South Ribble Borough Council to minimise the negative impact of the hot food takeaway. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jones. We now have the ward member, Councillor David Howarth.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor David Howarth, and the Liverpool Road District Centre, along with these premises, is the heart of my ward of Hurricane Priory. and once again speaking to oppose this application on the material planning grounds of contravention of policy G17 of the local plan, core strategy 17 and policy E4 of the local plan, supported by the National Planning Policy Framework 2, 7, 8 and 9, along with core strategies 10 and 11, all of which support refusal. Yet again, it's unfortunate that you're still being presented with recommendations for approval based on complete misinformation. The opening sentence states that there are no objections from any statutory consultees. Yet this item was deferred because of the failure to report the objections from Penwortham Town Council, who are statutory consultees. And again, there is no reference to the Penwortham Neighbourhood Plan, which is still pertinent until 2016. In section 11.4 of the report, it stated yet again that the property has been vacant for the last 12 months with no apparent appetite for retail use. It's simply not true. Contrary to this being a vacant premises, it's been leased for the past 12 months, with the lessors receiving monthly rent, with the lease not expiring until April. The lessees choosing not to use the premises they rent does not make it long-term vacant. It's been fully furnished and occupied in all but name and has not been available to anyone else to rent in that 12-month period. As for the lack of appetite for retail use, Liverpool Road already is a vibrant multi-purpose centre in which business units do not stand empty, and its viability is not in question. That only 22% of retail units are left is the strongest argument for refusal under policy E4. I would also refer you to the National Policy Planning Framework section 7, ensuring the vitality of town centres, which clearly states that decisions should support the role that town centres play at the heart of local communities. Whilst the National Planning Policy Framework has been updated, that is to address the volumes of empty retail units on dilapidated high streets up and down the country, which is simply not the case on Liverpool Road, where there are no empty units and constant high demand. Meanwhile, Core Strategy 11 refers to the district centre of Penwortham and maintaining, improving and controlling the mix of uses in the existing district and local centres. Allowing this application will do anything but maintain, improve and control the mix of uses. It will be to the detriment of retail. Within the volumes of objections received are material planning considerations of odours, noise and disturbance over proliferation of takeaways, health, well-being and access to healthy food and traffic and parking. It's now recognised that the flat above 57 Liverpool Road is in close proximity with other flats nearby. The bedrooms of that flat are adjacent to the proposed flue and the proposed activity surrounding a hot food takeaway. Committee refused an application for a hot food takeaway at number 27 Liverpool Road, citing increased noise, odours and general activity associated with a hot food takeaway, particularly during evening hours, as contrary to policy G17 and core strategy policy 17. This isn't about the visual impact. It is likewise about noise, odours and general activity. Environmental Health are quoted in the report as stating that conditions will minimise any resulting odours or noise-creating problems to neighbouring properties. That is an admission that there will be noise and odours, and that is a reason for refusal under G17 impact on residential amenity. Finally, close to the district centre, there are two high schools. Within the South Ribble supplementary planning document regarding access to healthy food, whilst that was suspended, National Planning Policy Framework 8, promoting health and safe communities, states planning policies and decisions should aim to enable and support healthy lifestyles, especially where this would address identified local health and well-being needs, for example, access to healthier food. This is supported by Core Strategy 10, Health and Well-being.
Councillor?
Finally, Chair, I totally disagree with the conclusions to justify the recommendation. A flue that close to a bedroom window does impact on residential amenity by way of smells and fumes, as does increased noise and disturbance, and is in contravention of policy G17 and core strategy 17, and a change of use from retail will be detrimental to the declining mix of use covered by E4 of the local plan and National Planning Policy Framework 2 and 7. I would urge committee to refuse.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Councillor Howarth. As passionate as ever. Thank you. Right, okay, committee. Hancock and Martin need to stay out of this. So I will open this application up to committee, ladies and gentlemen. Councillor Smith.
Is there anybody speaking for the application, Chair? Right.
Councillor Smith, if there were, I would have called them
Right.
forward.
Oh, yeah, I
The answer is
appreciate
no,
that.
they're
I
not.
just
Yeah. Councillor Roberts.
Thanks, Chair. I guess it would just be really helpful if any of the planning officers, obviously hearing Councillor Howarth's speech then, is there anything the officers want to come back on or anything like that, just to add some clarification so we make an informed decision?
I'll bring Chris back in on this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Reference was made to the potential appetite for retail reuse of the premises and the contravention of policy E4. As noted within paragraphs 11.1 to 11.6 of the report, policy E4 has largely been superseded by the NPPF, so it is acknowledged that there is a contravention of policy E4 in terms of the retail provision from the district centre, which would be worsened by this application. However, the NPPF has superseded and overtaken what the policy requirements are in the local plan. The proposal would provide for the bringing forward of the use of a unit which is currently vacant. I'm not sure about the appetite of different uses, but regardless of the end use, officers feel that it accords with the requirements of the NPPF in terms of town centre uses. Reference was made to Penryn Town Council's comments, which are detailed within paragraph 8.2. They are not a statutory consultee, although their comments are clearly welcomed in the determination of planning applications. References was made to Penryn Neighbourhood Plan. That's listed in the policy considerations. The Penryn Neighbourhood Plan contains 7 policies, none of which are materially relevant to the change of use of a commercial premises within Penryn District Centre. And I think that's all I've got to respond to, Chair.
All right, Chris, thanks for coming back on that. Just, can I just, I mean, you've been a planning officer as long as I've been a councillor, which is quite a while. I heard a gasp of disbelief from Councillor Howarth when you said the parish council aren't a statutory consultee. Is that correct?
In terms of the decision-making process, you've got like the county highways, environmental health and the like. I mean, we do consult parish councils, town councils on planning applications. Their comments are and should be listed within the report, which they are. But they, in terms of the statutory consultees, no.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Roberts.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chair. It's a really tricky one. I understand why there's frustration in the community. I think there's some social and moral issues around it. I can see why people don't want that. I think tonight is one of them things where you've got to put the duty, that we've all got on committee of doing what's best in the interest of the South Ribble Council, Council residents who pay the council tax to us, and it's one of them that I'm going to have to propose approval for. So I'll propose approval, Chair.
Okay, thanks. So that's a proposal for approval as per the recommendation of the officer. Thanks, Councillor Roberts. Do I have anyone else? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a real problem in supporting this, I have to say. The noise and odours is one of them, and I know it might be difficult to prove that. And there's a good bit of detail in there about the extraction system. But my problem is the policy Class E and changing it to from retail to fast food, and for several reasons. The big reason is that as a council, we've worked hard with regard to Penwitham and supported and paid for via various commitments with regard to planning policies and planning applications, a Penwitham bypass. And the whole reason for that was to control the traffic through Penwitham. And instead of Penwitham closing down, and there was quite a few shops empty at the time, Penwitham is now, as pointed out, this vibrant town centre. And for me, there's having dealt with economic development for quite a number of years, it's a very, very fine balance between a vibrant town centre and over-proliferation of something that takes control of the area itself and absolutely spoils it. And it really is very difficult. So on the basis of the change of policy and for the reason that obviously the council would be looking for a various amount of different types of retail, and not only that, there's some fast food as well, and there is some in the area, and there's some restaurants in the area which are good restaurants, and why would we want to spoil it? And to me, I have real difficulty with that, so I would have difficulty supporting it at this stage, I have to say. I'm certainly prepared to listen to what other members have to say, but I would find it very, very difficult to support it. Thank you, Chair.
Is that a proposal, Councillor Smith, or not?
I could turn it into a proposal. I was just quite prepared to listen to what other members were saying, but I could be quite prepared to propose refusal on those grounds with regard to the change of classification and what that would mean to the vibrance of the town centre. Thank you, Chair.
So would that be ground G17E4 MPPF Section 7?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All of the above. So that's a proposal for refusal from Councillor Smith then. Councillor Williams.
I think a point of clarification more than anything else. Councillor Howarth referred to the NPPF and things around healthy eating and proximity of different things. Referred to, I forget which paragraph he referred to, but can you give us some more information on what the NPPF says around healthy eating and provision of those types of establishments, because this has a real bearing on it. Granted, our SPD no longer applies near schools and whatever, but I just want some clarification as to how that applies.
Yeah, Chair, just while Chris looks up the specific paragraph and the wording in the NPPF, I think what we have to look and be more mindful of is that the NPPF is obviously the overarching framework, and then your local plan policy sits underneath that. And quite a lot of local authorities have policies in their local plans that seek to resist proliferation of hot food takeaways in certain areas for reasons of health, where there are perhaps scientific reasons as to why that should occur. And that's something that we are exploring as part of our local plan preparation now, but we don't have the policy basis in our own local plan at the current time to hang a refusal on of this application based on the impact on health, because we don't have the evidence. So I would guard against using any reason for refusal on those grounds if members were unhappy with the principle of this application. But I'll move on to Chris and he can have a look at the exact wording.
Thank you. I'll just try and summarise what is a lengthy set of paragraphs here. So chapter 8 of the NPPF is entitled Promoting Healthy and Safe Communities. Paragraph 96 states that policies and decisions should aim to achieve healthy, inclusive and safe places and beautiful buildings, and there are a number of criterions here, and the most materially relevant is C. Enable and support healthy lifestyles, especially where this would address identified local health and well-being needs, for example, through the provision of safe and accessible green infrastructure, sport facilities, local shops, access to healthier food, allotments and layouts that encourage walking and cycling. References to school places, state regeneration. I think that is the most relevant section, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your time, Chris. Thank you. Councillor Williams, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, that clarifies me. That's only going to hang on something if there is an identified need. As Catherine says, there's nothing specific. There's no research done on effects of this, that, and the other. We have no evidence. As much as we don't like it, and we really don't want it. It's a case of there's no evidence to not back that up. The other bit I don't like is the fact that this application is only on until 10 o'clock, and normally with takeaways the license past 10 or 11 o'clock, and I mean, actually have to go through the licensing regime, and the licensing can effectively clamp down on stuff. So effectively, if the order control isn't managed properly, then the only way of enforcing it is through environmental health, I believe. But that's about the only way of doing it. But like I said, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place here. I think, you know, it's clear the community, elements of the community don't want it, but there's too many overwhelming things within the guidance that says we cannot stop it. So I'm going to have to second approval. I've got no choice. I've got absolutely no choice. There's nothing in here. There's nothing in the NPPF that says evidence-based that I can refuse it. I can't. You know, as much as nobody wants it, it's not what you want, it's what you can prove and what you can go against policy with. But there's nothing there, so I'm going to have to second approval. I've got no choice.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williams. Okay, Councillor Mulliner, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I was interested before about the regarding the application being put in the middle of other shops there, which I don't feel it's right that there should be. It's almost that it's going to be detrimental to those other shops. And I think, as Councillor Smith mentioned there about the way Penwith is at the moment, the way that it's being developed and the way it's improving, I think this could be a detrimental move by doing that when there seems to be a little bit of doubt on whether that business has been allowed to be taken up by something else. I think maybe we should be giving it time to see if we can get the right kind of business going in there, and not just put a fast food sort of takeaway in there just because it's, you know, they feel it's right. I certainly don't feel it's right. And for me, I don't think it's justified to be in that area. And I would second Councillor Smith's refusal.
Yeah, okay, Councillor Mulliner. I'll take it that you're going to use the same material planning considerations as Councillor Smith, and not I don't think it's right. Is that okay?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Right, if we're all done, we have had a proposal for approval a proposal for approval by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Williams. We have had a proposal for refusal, which is an amendment by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Peter Mulliner. So we're going to go to the vote on the amendment first, if you're all finished. You are all finished, are you? So we're going to vote on the amendment. Councillor Smith?
Yes, I've finished, Chair, but just to sort of outline the reasoning. I mean, in policy E4, of course, we suppose should have 60% retail, and whilst we all appreciate that there needs to be a variance across there. I mean, according to this, the council's most recent retail position, 23, is only 22% of units within Penwitham district. And, you know, that's a huge difference between the aspiration of 60% and the reality of 22%. And this would obviously impact and make it worse. So I just confirm that I would propose refusal, Chair.
Perhaps we should start taxing Amazon so we can have shops back. But anyway, that's not a material planning consideration. So we're going to go to vote on the refusal from Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Mullinor. So we're going to go to the electronic vote on this one. So this is for the amendment for refusal on 55 Liverpool Road.
Thank you, Chair. So that vote has not been carried. So we will now vote to recommend for approval now.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so on the electronic voting system, this is for approval.
Thank you, Chair. So committee have decided to grant permission in respect of a change of use of ground floor from retail class E to a hot food takeaway, together with the installation of an extraction flue vent to the rear, subject to conditions at 55 Liverpool Road, Penwitham, Preston. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Taz. If you've just come for that one item, if you unless you want to stay, obviously, for the rest of the meeting, but if you've just come for the one item, you can leave now. Thank you. All right, Councillor Martin and Councillor Hancock are back in the room. I think we're just having a 2-minute break. Councillor Williams has just left the room. Okay, item number 7 this evening. Item number 7 this evening is given to us by Debbie Roberts. It's the South Ribble Museum and Exhibition Centre. And the applicant is a Brian Clough. So I think we better all be careful on this one. Eh?
Somebody had to say it. Okay. The application refers to the former grammar school with the attached master's cottage at Church Road in Leyland. It's a Grade 2 listed property. It's most recently used as South Ribble Museum and Exhibition Centre. To the north and at a lower level is Church Road. To the west, and that's elevated, it is the church and churchyard, and that abuts the rear elevation. And to the south is the church watchtower, which is also listed, and the churchyard. Okay, the proposal is for a series. It requires listed building consent only for a series of restorative works. Property's fallen into bad repair over the last few years, and it's not now in a usable state. Separate planning permission isn't needed. The schedule of works, which is detailed in your report, is quite complex, but it includes roughly protection measures for the churchyard and users of Church Road during development, raising of the internal schoolroom floor by 1.5 metres. That was lowered to increase head height, and it's causing damp issues. I'll show you that in a second. Works to the roof, chimney, lead work and rainwater goods. Replacement and restoration of windows, including polycarbonate glazing to the ground floors. Damp and restorative works with some structural repairs and movement monitoring. And that may lead to future consents, but at the moment this is just monitoring for future proposals. This photograph shows the front elevation facing Church Road. As you can see, it's elevated. This one is of the rear elevation facing the watchtower. You can see the damaged render and the damaged chimney stack. And these photographs are of the schoolroom floor. Lowering was happened probably early 1980s. It wasn't successful. It's caused a lot of damp problems, and the plan is to tank the lowered section and to reinstate it roughly where the red line is. As you can see at the right hand picture, you can see the fireplace. That's where the original floor would have been. And there are stairs on the right hand photograph, as you can see, into what is now the lowered floor. It's causing damp problems throughout the building. Rear elevation facing the churchyard. There'll be some protective measures to secure the immediate churchyard. As you can see, some of these gravestones are right next to the rear elevation. Windows with polycarbonate on the ground floor will be replaced and restored. And again, you can see the damaged chimney on the side. We've had one letter of representation from the church itself seeking details of churchyard protection, and they've been provided. Otherwise, no objection, and we will go with list of building consent granted with conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Debbie. Okay, we don't have any registered speakers on this one. We don't have the ward councillors, and I will open up to committee immediately. Councillor Mary Green.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'd just like to say I'm quite impressed in the way through the report. There's a general good thought of how you maintain the building during your renovations, how you're protecting the churchyard and the church and the building and all that. And I'm very pleased to see that it's going to be renovated again. It's a valuable building we've got, part of our historical roots in Leyland. And I think it'll be really nice and worthwhile when it's finished. So I'd like to propose approval, please.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Green. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'll second that proposal. It's a really interesting report. I read it with great joy, to be quite honest. There's a lot of detail in there, and it's really, really interesting. And it's good to see this coming forward, and I'd like to see it obviously reverting back to it's not its original use, but it's the use that we put it to as in a museum. That should be really, really good. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Smith. Do we have any other proposals? Okay, so this is for approval. If we can go to the electronic vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. So committee have decided to grant listed building consent with conditions as outlined in the item 7 of the report.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Taz. Good news. Originally a school. Okay. Agenda item 8 this evening is 40 Ball Lane, Leyland. And Lisa, if you would like to present this item, please.
Just bear with me, Chair. It's taken a little while to move forward.
It's not ready to interview for the presentation.
Yes, that's what people. So. Sorry, Chair, it seems to be sticking. It's not moving on.
Okay, are we on?
Yeah, thank you,
Okay,
Chair.
Lisa,
Apologies for that.
if you'd like to present the item, please.
Thank you, Chair. The application before us relates to an end of terrace property at 40 Bow Lane in Leyland. The property is located on the corner of Bow Lane and a spur off Bow Lane in a residential area and is part of the existing built-up area. There's also some commercial uses nearby, including a substation. This aerial image just shows the context of the site in a wider area. So you've got the end of the high street there, and further down to the bottom left-hand side, you've got a Tesco convenience store. This aerial image before just shows the site and context again. So you've got the corner property there, where you've got road frontage both to the south, which is the side of the property, and to the east hand side, where it's the front of the property. This image now shows the front of the property. Just two-storey traditional built property. So these images before you now just show the side views in particular. Some renovation work has been done to the property where the skip was previously outside. That's now been removed. And that's just some shots at different times of the year, different times of the day. Also, you can see the bottom right-hand corner one was taken early in the morning. So you can just see the position where they've got some cars and the space as well roundabout. It's just further context. So on the top right-hand corner, that's immediately opposite the site there as well. And that's just surrounding road network going further up Bow Lane as well on the bottom right-hand side there. So this shows the ground floor existing layout and the proposed layout there. So at the top end, you had a former garage workshop area, which is proposed to be converted. The kitchen has been extended because being an old terrace property, the bathroom was previously downstairs. Then you've got reception areas to the bottom where there's previously two reception rooms. One lounge area is going to be retained. In the bottom, there'll be an additional bedroom downstairs. First floor layout at the top of the picture there, that's single story part of the building, which will be retained as single story there. So you've got bedroom remaining as a bedroom at the northern end there, bathroom being moved upstairs as well. So the application, as we said earlier, in terms of its location, is proposed to be a change of use from a C3 dwelling house to C4. Originally, when the application did come in, it was proposed to be 7 bedrooms, which was a sui generis use. However, with the reduction in the number of bedrooms to 6, that comes under C4 use, which does constitute permitted development, which we'll explain more further later. So the proposed use for the HMO is considered to be acceptable in principle. The site is in a sustainable location and in a residential area where such uses are deemed appropriate. It is close to some local services and transport facilities. It would also see the reuse of a vacant property. County Highways do not object and are satisfied the development would not have a significant impact on the highway conditions and vicinity of the site. As such, and taken into account that the scheme could be permitted development, this application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Lisa. Technology sometimes does me as well, but you did very well. You caught very well, I must say. Right, we have 3 members of the public wishing to object to this application. And first we have Mr. Phil Crook. If you'd like to come to the table, you have 4 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Phil Crook and I live at number 50 Ball Lane, less than 20 metres from the proposed HMO. Whilst working in the prison service, I qualified as a fire safety advisor. I have the certification to prove this. I have extensive knowledge of the Regulatory Reform Order 2005 fire safety. And while studying the guidelines in the Housing Act 2004, it became very quickly apparent that the guidelines run parallel in both sets of regulations. The Housing Act 2004 begins by stating that any proposed HMO must be in a suitable area for such. Obviously, this is not the case here. As HMOs became more abundant, the Act had accordingly been amended to prevent vulnerable people from rogue landlords looking to exploit them. In 2018, the Act, which I have read extensively and is readily available for anybody to study, refers to a maximum of 5 non-related adults in a 2-storey building unless extensions have been made to the property. They have not. The Act also clearly lays out guidelines for local authorities in the implementation of assuring there is sufficient space and facilities and amenities for the residents of any HMO. Somebody, whether it is the landlord or the planning officer, will be held accountable if such guidelines are broken. These guidelines and regulations are set out with people's safety in mind, health interests. In short, these guidelines save lives. The main cause of fire in residential dwellings is the overloading of sockets. Has an electrical safety certificate been obtained that complies with the much tighter guidelines referring to HMOs? It is likely that residents will spend much of their time in single, small bedrooms, where smoking becomes a serious cause for concern. Has enough smoke detection been installed to comply with fire safety? Have fire doors been installed throughout the building? And do they open in the direction of travel in the event of an evacuation? I noticed that both front and rear doors of the property open inwards, so this is clearly not in compliance. Have fire extinguishers been provided and will training in their uses be provided? A fire escape route must be in place and must be kept clear at all times. The proposed number of strangers, adult strangers, in this HMO is 6. If this is passed by the planning committee, they will know that they are setting a precedent that other landlords will refer to. I'd just like to conclude by saying that I have been careful not to quote the law, but have merely pointed out to regulations and guidelines. However, in law, in the eventuality of a serious occurrence, somebody will be accountable. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Mr. Crook. We now have Mr. David Cuthbert. Yeah, Taz is just going to come in, David, before you speak, okay?
Through you, Chair, there was just references around the Housing Act 2004, and obviously I just wanted to mention that that is covered by the environmental health regime, so it's not a consideration for the planning committee. It's obviously something that would be covered as part of an application under the Housing Act 2004, which environmental health would consider.
Okay, thanks for your advice, Taz. Okay, David, if you press the speak button, you then have 4 minutes and you'll be timed, okay? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak at this planning meeting. I am going to be covering some of his things because that's going to come over it. I would like to refer to various articles from your last committee report with reference in particular to Drawing 101 Revision E dated 25th of the 3rd, 24. This document is not factually correct to the site plan layout, thus changing the dimensions of any works carried out. Article 7.4, rear yard bins and bike shed cannot be correctly dimensioned to show the fire hazard escape route and the hygiene hazard of having bins stored so closely to what will be frequently used kitchen. Article 8, supporting information. Showing layout of the existing ground floor plans which have walls either not in the correct place or missing altogether, which shows that the survey undertaken was inaccurate and therefore any following dimensions cannot be correct. Article 10.4.2 states that no external alterations to the proposed development, therefore having little or no impact on its appearance. But if you revert to revision E drawing, this statement not to be true, i.e. bricking up of a garage door and windows and bathroom window and then covering with rendering, giving the building a totally different appearance. According to 10.11.2, South Ribble Borough Council Building Control have surveyed the property and shown no concern over the works undertaken, even though the work done thus far does not comply with the proposed plan, i.e. cavity wall insulation, cavity wall closures, therefore not meeting the minimum K value rating as stated on the plans. Back doors fitted incorrectly, opening internally instead of externally, garage floor insulation build-up, not as per drawing. Crash all over the place there. Yeah, soil pipe outside bedroom 5 has insufficient fall and the grey water from the upstairs bathroom goes into this pipe as well. This will cause unpleasant odours going back into the property. Also, extraction fans are shown on the drawing and as yet there are no visible outlets for these or even where they could go. No extraction will cause damp and mould. There are no windows in either the bathroom or the toilet for natural light or ventilation. Just on another note that I haven't wrote there, the property was vacant and did suffer from damp. That's with nobody in it. When you've got 6 occupants in there, all the time, with the heating on, breathing, cooking, showering, this, that and the other, the moisture buildup will be quite considerable. There is a bored hole for the kitchen extraction fan in a small supporting column in between a window and a door, adversely weakening the structure. It states on the drawing that the flat roof shall be installed by a professional and competent company. I don't believe this to be the case, as this was installed by MTS Developments in adverse winter weather, and some external brickwork is being held in place with expanding foam. Surely this cannot be up to building regs. As this property is planned as a HMO, it should therefore meet a higher criteria with regards to insulation to reduce adverse greenhouse effects and the carbon footprint. The work on the property has not been done to a high standard, and I don't know who from the council is coming out and saying that it has. Because everybody that I've showed, I do structural steel for a living, and everybody that I've showed that building to has been disgusted with the workmanship that's been done on it. And if you don't believe me, you're quite welcome to go down yourself, have a look at it, and see if you'd have them work on your house. Never mind put people in it to live.
Okay, David. Thanks very much for your presentation and your passion. Okay, do we have a Jim Berry, please? Good evening, Mr. Berry. If we can keep repetition to a minimum, if we can, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a lot to say that hasn't been covered by David and Phil. I live right next door to this property, proposed property. My name's Mr. Berry, 38 Boar Lane, which is right next door. I've lived there 40 years plus. I feel this HMO is not appropriate for a residential area, as it's for families with children, grandchildren who play around this area. Also, a main thoroughfare for children coming and going to school. 6 unrelated adults housed in a confined space with no outdoor space is a recipe for disaster. It sets a precedence for future HMOs in Leyland area, and I'm sure it will lead to bigger problems if it goes through. As I'm sure you're aware, this HMO is in a cul-de-sac for the electric board, which has no turning point for trailers, wagons and vans, which need 24 access to the electric board coming and going. Also, there's only room for 3 vehicles at the side of the property, not 6, as its 30-foot needs to be clear as you leave the cul-de-sac. Refer to the highway laws of that part there. The whole building work started in November, approximately 23rd. I was led to believe personally by Mark Shevington, MST Developments, it was going to be a 3-bedroomed house for sale or rent, not a business. Not so. He told me this when he was bricking up the windows at the side of my garage. Only later, when I received the letter of change of use right on Christmas, on a busy time when it's hard to stop it, I felt deceived that he lied to me. He didn't tell me what his real intentions were. This building work has been done before planning has been granted. I hope you, the committee, will do the right thing and abide by planning rules clearly written and refuse this application. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that, Mr. Berry. Right, we have your ward councillors. Do you want to present together or separately? Come on, make your minds up. I think it'll be more comfortable if you just do it together, and actually you've now got 8 minutes if you can fulfill it, okay?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Nicky Peets, Ambrose Ward. I'd just like to start by clarifying that the property was vacant prior to sale only for 5 months, and this is due to probate process and family issues that meant the property was marketed at a much higher price, so it took longer to sell. It's actually a perfectly good family home near good schools, and I feel it would sell as a family home if marketed that way. There are also plenty of families looking for rental properties. Due to my active involvement in the homelessness scrutiny, I know this to be true. For a significant number of families, there wouldn't be a problem, I don't think, renting it as a family home either. The plans mean the loss of a much needed family home in a family orientated neighbourhood. Like the residents have explained, there's a mixture of families and post-retirement age people with bungalows behind in Melton Place, direction north west. So a HMO would not be in keeping with the surrounding properties whatsoever. It is the first HMO application brought to this committee. I'm sure it won't be the last, and this evening we will be setting a precedence on what we're prepared to accept or not accept as a council. This could literally happen to any of our wards across the borough where we would least expect it, because this is certainly where we would least expect it. We really need to take good care of our existing residents and our future residents. That's already been said about the work being started first. Okay, the room sizing. Future residents in those small, tiny rooms just brings massive concerns for us. The plans have been amended several times. The width of the property differs from plan to plan. Strange. There is 1 bedroom left to be addressed still, which is bed 4 upstairs front. It's still only 6.47 metres squared, which is below the absolute minimum stated in the mandatory national HMO guidance as 6.51 metres squared. And although a legal minimum, it does state this is not the optimal room size, so it's not really what we should be aiming for. There's also a distinct lack of outdoor space. The bike shed being in the backyard now, it was originally planned in the front yard, but it only leaves the front garden now for recreational use for 6 or maybe 7 people because one of the bedrooms is double, plus guests, and this isn't good for mental health for future residents if this is the only space they've got, and it could be potential noise disturbances for existing residents. So noise disturbances is one of the main factors. So the backyard now, there isn't really quite enough room. The bins are off scale on the drawings. I've been and had a look myself. A 2 metre by 1 metre bike shed there. You wouldn't be able to open the door where you'd put the bins, or you'd have to have the bins directly under the kitchen window, which isn't great for odours or hygiene. So again, we mentioned the doors perhaps opening the wrong way, but when they open the correct way, one of them, when you go and look at the site and you look at the size, the actual size of the window and door, as that door opens, it then blocks the fire escape for bedroom 2, the one that used to be the garage. So there'd be more noise as well from people just coming and going, leading separate lives in general, potentially spilling out onto the street or the front garden. But also, if they were to spend more time in their bedrooms, they're then overlooking directly the property opposite as well. So there's a bit of a privacy issue, and there's also a privacy issue for bedroom 2 because their window directly faces the one and only reception room window, and also the upstairs window can look directly into that bedroom window as well. So there are privacy issues on the actual property as well. There'd also be more rubbish created. I know it says in there we compare it to a family just purely on the number of people, but if you think about it, a family will cook together and eat together, whereas if you're doing that 6 times at each meal time, or maybe 7 times depending what the setup is, I think that will create more rubbish. Personally, and then there's not really much room for extra bins. There just simply isn't enough room in that little backyard for all these things that we think we need. There'd be odour issues at worst, there'd be pest control would be needed. So, yeah, privacy. So all in all, it's a case of let's fit as many bedrooms as we can into a little terraced house to maximise profits. But this is at the detriment to existing residents in terms of noise, odour and the subject Joe is about to speak on. But the property itself, is compromised because it's just been made into something ill-fitting with tiny rooms below national standard. So there's a detriment to the actual property itself as well. Do we need to wrap up? Sorry, yeah. Sorry, so I recommend objecting the proposal.
Right. I'm Councillor Jo Hindle-Taylor for St Ambrose Ward. This proposed HMO is in completely the wrong area due to a number of factors, including a very important one, parking. Lancashire County Council had concerns over the plans to begin with, saying, after a site visit, it is evident this area struggles with parking. The off-street parking around this area makes this section of Bow Lane and the surrounding side streets single traffic. However, now a cycle storage has appeared on the plans, Lancashire County Council have now said they will find it hard to object. Now, to assume the majority of people living in the HMO will use a bike isn't a good enough reason to give it the go-ahead, is it really? How can we know the cycle storage will actually be utilised? What if none of the residents are cyclists? Plus, there's hardly any room for bike storage as it is. Outdoor space is very limited here. Around 2 or 3 cars will be able to be parked at the side of the property. This will be a squeeze though. Electricity North West is also tucked away at the top of this small section of Bow Lane, with large vehicles going in and out every day. These large vehicles will struggle to gain access if cars are parked in this area, resulting in traffic congestion. It will prove problematic for ambulances to drive down to. As councillors, Nikki and I struggle to park in this area when we need to deliver leaflets or visit residents, so we've experienced firsthand the parking challenges here. Last but certainly not least, Bow Lane is used as a cut-through with many speeding drivers. More cars parked will cause more obstruction, leading to more accident in this family residential area. We have had residents reach out to us before regarding the ongoing speeding on Bow Lane. It's certainly not the place for more parked cars.
Exactly 8 minutes. Well done, both of you. It really is refreshing. It's really refreshing when ward councillors come, stand and address committee with their concerns. And thank you very much indeed. Just before I bring this into committee, it is my duty as the chair to bring Catherine in on this application before we discuss it. Catherine.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, we've listened to the concerns of residents and the ward councillors. And I just want to explain the background to this application. It was first submitted to us as a 7-bed house in multiple occupancy. And as members of the public and councillors are aware, through negotiation, that has been reduced in number to 6. And therefore, that gives us a difficulty as a council, because planning permission is not actually required for that property to be used as a house in multiple occupancy for residents between 3 and 6 in number. There are permitted development rights in the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order, Class L, which allow a change of use of a building from a C3 dwelling to a Class C4 HMO. And there is nothing as a council that we can do at the current time to prevent that property from being used as a house in multiple occupancy for up to 6 residents. And I just want members to be members of the public to be aware of that position before the application is considered. The applicant has decided to continue on with the planning permission because it was already submitted. It had already been called to committee. He could, of course, decide not to continue with the application, to go in and use the property as a 6-person HMO, or to apply for certificate of lawfulness. But he's taken the decision to continue on with the application as it had already, in the public domain, had interest and members had called it in. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Catherine, thanks for that. So, obviously, I am going to bring this into committee, and we can voice our concerns. We can turn it down. If we do turn it down, it could go ahead anyway, which is a bit of a strange situation. Councillor Williams.
Where do I start with this? Right. Right. I am concerned about what the ward councillors have said about LCC objecting to parking to start with, and now there's a cycle store. A part of our local plan, we've got policy F1, which details car parking. Now, it states for a 3-bedroom house, there should be at least 3 car parking spaces. And I believe the garage workshop was an allocated car parking space that has now been effectively removed. So if we're going to disregard that part of it, that parking space should be retained as part of that's one thing. So that contravenes G17 item C, highway safety, free flow of traffic, and policy F1 in traffic. So that is, for me, one reason for refusal. G17A says the proposal does not have a detrimental impact on the existing building, and but obviously it's our job as a committee to judge whether something is suitable in its particular plan. And for a number of reasons, this building, it just isn't of a design that is suitable for a living house, never mind an HMO. As a 6-bedroom house, we say, for example, bedroom 4 that's on the plans. By those measurements, they're there, and I'm assuming they are correct, because that's all I can go on, and they're not being physically measured. It is less than an HMO bedroom will be licensed for, so that contravenes plan. So obviously that can't be sorted. But there's no amenity space, no relaxation space. Obviously, look at the kitchen as well. As part of an HMO, you've got to have a kitchen cupboard for each occupant that is raised off the floor. So you can see on the kitchen design, there are 6 cupboards. In the neighbouring side there, there's got to be room for fridges and white goods. But I can't see anywhere within that kitchen where there can be an oven, where there can be a hob, because you can't put hobs underneath units. So that kitchen is not fit for design. It's not fit for anybody living there, never mind an HMO, because you can't fit anything else in there. But the biggest thing for me, well, the next thing is if that door opens outwards from the kitchen, it blocks a fire escape into the rear yard. The rear yard is congested with a bike storage and bins. But the biggest thing is lack of privacy aspect for bedroom 2 at the back, the converted workshop. That is their only source of light in that window, and it is directly overlooked from the lounge itself and the upstairs bedroom 5 on these plans here. Now, if it was the same household, then there won't be an issue. It doesn't really matter. It's the same household looking into each other's bedroom. If it was just one set of family living there, these are effectively 6 different households that are living in that HMO, and each one of those households is afforded a right of privacy. And if it was an ordinary house, there'd be separation distances, frosted windows. There'll be all sorts of different things in it. So as part of that, for me, it's detrimental to policy G17A. So I would propose refusal. Now, even though I've no idea whether those things would be considered if at the permitted development stage, I've no idea. But whether this is in front of me, there's no way I can pass this. It's got to be refused.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williams. I presume nobody heard what Catherine said, but I'll fetch Taz in on this.
Thank you, Chair. So there's just one point that I wanted to make, which was around some of the comments that you were making, Councillor Williams, around the HMOs, etc. They would require a separate application under the Housing Act for a licence for a housing multiple occupation. So that's separate to a requirement for planning permission. So I just want to make members aware of that. So they would need obviously a separate licence, which would be considered by officers in the environmental health team. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Taz. Go on, Lisa, hurry up.
Yeah, it was just to make people aware of the licence method as well that needs to go through. So they haven't had a licence as yet. They have had some early discussions with our department, but there hasn't been a formal submission as yet.
So that might be a saving grace, obviously. Councillor Green, and then Councillor Martin, and then Councillor Lomax.
Yeah, just a couple of small points. I know that area quite well, and it's very narrow, very tight, difficult for traffic. It's potentially a cul-de-sac. If you've got 6 people living in there, potentially you could have another 6 cars. Where are they going to park? There are massive parking and traffic issues there. Already people use Bow Lane as a rat run through to St Ambrose that way, at school times especially. Like Councillor Williams was saying, it's saying that there's only 1 bathroom between 4 bedrooms as well. They've only got a small kitchen, which is very small for the number of occupants in that place. And I obviously think that there's going to be too many vehicles in an already congested area. And I think it affects the residential amenity of local residents, and I think that's a good reason for planning to get it turned down. So I second Councillor Williams for refusal. Thank you.
Okay, quickly, thanks. Thanks, Councillor Green. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I want to thank Phil, David and Jim for making a representation. It's not easy coming up here to speak and speak so eloquently and passionately. And of course, you've got to thank your 2 councillors who have stood up for you. I think that's the first thing that needs to be said. If this was a normal planning application, there would be issues around parking, although LCC may say that it's acceptable. Even though it may be acceptable, there are rules around that, and it could still affect the amenity of the residents there, which will probably will do, because there'll be a battle for parking if everyone does get a car in there. I did visit the site some time ago, and it was a sad reflection of the building quality at the time, because one of the walls did reflect the name of the road. It had quite a bow in it. So I sort of wondered whether that was remedied or anything like that. And I see the planning officer smiling with that. I suppose because we can't do anything in theory, I mean, we can make comment on what we think will happen with that place. 6 adults squeezed into a house that was designed technically for maybe 4 or 5 as a family unit. These aren't family units, so they're separate homes. So you've got 6 homes built into one small or end of terraced house. It's going to be inconvenient, and I personally sort of feel for the people who feel that that's the only place they have to live, because I mean, anyone who's been in the rental market, I recently moved myself, it's a nightmare to get anywhere of any quality for a decent price. Licensing for members of the public and the councillors probably be the way forward to look at this, and to try and sort of like get some work done here to try and sort it out. I worry also about the size of the rooms with regard to sound protection and insulation, so that might be something to bring forward. So if it was a normal planning meeting, I would go with the other councillors and go for not approving this in any way whatsoever.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Councillor Lomax.
Yeah, I'm going to apologise to you, even if we all, and I'm sure most of us will, turn this down, we can't stop it. Everybody needs somewhere to live, even single people. We don't know how many cars there's going to be. Yes, there is a likelihood, but we actually don't know. They might all be bus users, but we all need somewhere to live. The rooms are too small. Okay, I get that. They are overlooked. I get that. I will vote to turn this down. But thank you. I am going to vote to turn this down, but everybody needs somewhere to live. Whether that be on a brown site or a green site, there are not enough places for people. I know that because I have my own children who cannot move out of the family house. You could have someone buy this and have 10, 12 people move in as a family. People need somewhere to live, but this is too small. I hope they don't get the licence. I really do hope they don't get the licence. But what I'm saying to you is, even though I am voting against it, as said, they can still go ahead and do it within the law. So I propose that we do vote against it. I'm happy to second or third. The law, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the law. We're not lawmakers, we're councillors, and we're here to try and support the public. David, you've already spoke for 4 minutes. I'm sorry, but our hands are tied. I wish this wasn't here, okay? He could have withdrawn this and gone ahead regardless. It's permitted development. There's nothing we can do about it as councillors. And I do apologise. I sympathise with your plight, and I hope he isn't given the licence to do it. However, we are sat here making a recommendation that, unfortunately, our hands are tied here. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right. You've done your 4 minutes. I know you want to scream and shout. I would, because this residence, as far as I'm concerned, is not big enough for 6 adults. It's porky, to say the least. It's all right for 2 adults with 4 children. That's fine. One day those 4 children will grow wings and leave. It just isn't acceptable to me, but it's permitted development, and there's nothing this committee can do about it. And it shouldn't really be in front of us, because it should have just gone ahead with it, and there would be nothing anyone could do, nothing your ward councillors could do, and nothing the council could do. So I'm afraid I'm going to close the debate down. I'm going to ask you, committee members, to make your recommendations. It's not going to make any difference, but make your recommendations and support the people. That's what we're here for. Okay, thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Can we go to Councillor Smith, one more, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one. I mean, I think we're all familiar with the term of dog's breakfast, and I think if you look at this application, it's very much a dog's breakfast, to be quite honest. You know, but it will go to somewhere else who will make some decisions on this, probably more qualified than we are, Chair. There's the electrical certificate, which has been mentioned. That will be stringent, I know. The Housing Act and the space and the need in the premises, people from housing will have a view on that. Building control will also have a view on that at some stage when it starts getting to a stage. And fire safety, which is the real critical one. I'm sure the fire service and the qualified people that will actually look at that in great detail will have a view on that as well. So there's quite a lot of people that will have a serious look at that and a serious view of it at some stage in its life, which is not for this committee, unfortunately. But nevertheless, I would not support it going forward, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. I'm going to close the debate down, and I would suggest Councillor Williams would propose an amendment to the proposal.
I'll propose an amendment.
And I would say G17A, if you don't mind.
I propose an amendment to the recommendation to refuse this application as it's contravening policy G17 section A, detrimental impact on the existing building, that particular.
And do I have a proposer for a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Lomax. Does anybody want to propose approval for this application? Nope. Okay. So Taz, did you want to come in and say something or not, or did you want to just whisper in my ear head?
No, it's just to vote now.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go straight to the electronic vote. This is for an amendment for the approval, and we're going to vote for refusal on this application. Okay. Taz, if you could tell us what our recommendations would be on that application, please.
Thank you, Chair. So committee have decided to refuse the application for proposed change of use from C3 to C4 to accommodate a 6-bed HMO on the basis that it contravenes policy G17A.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Taz. As I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, our recommendation would be to refuse this application, but once again our hands are tied. It's what's called permitted development, and it's just here in front of us when it didn't actually need to be. But they need to now get a licence, and we need to make sure that it is extremely stringent. I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening. I'd like to thank the ward councillors who did 8 minutes exactly. Your timing was impeccable, as was your presentation. Okay, thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. We're now moving on to agenda item number 9 this evening, which is 16 Selkirk Drive, Walton Dale. If you were just here for that application, if you can leave as quietly as you can, please, and we will move on to the next item. You are more than welcome, and I hope it comes to a satisfactory conclusion for all of you. You are welcome.
It's permitted development. It depends on the restrictions on the individual property, if there's a condition restricting that or if permitted development rights have been removed.
Okay, some real passion there, wasn't there? and you can't blame them. You just can't blame them. Anyway, let's move on to item number 9, which is 16 Selkirk Drive, Waltonleydale. Janice, if you'd like to present this item, please. You're welcome.
So this application relates to a semi-detached residential property at 16 Selkirk Drive, which is in Waltonleydale. The property is located on the corner of Selkirk Drive and Lawrence Avenue, and it's in a residential area and part of the existing built-up area of Waltonleydale. So this is just a view of the application property, which has a 2-storey side extension and a carport. So this aerial image shows the parking area to the front. The property has 3 off-road parking spaces when you include the carport. So this is first photograph's just a side view of the property taken from Lawrence Avenue, and the second just shows the rear boundary with the adjacent property, and the application property has a fully enclosed rear garden, as you can see from that slide. The first photograph here is the property on the opposite side of Lawrence Avenue, and the second is of the properties on the opposite side of Selkirk Drive, just to give some context to the area in which the application property is set. So the application proposes a change from a C3 residential dwelling to a C2 children's care home for up to 3 children between the ages of 8 and 17. And this plan shows the ground floor layout and the parking arrangements. And this is the first floor. The existing study, which you can see there, is to be converted to a 5th bedroom, but no other alterations are proposed. So we've had 58 objections, with the main issues being the impact on residential amenity, parking and highway safety, noise and disturbance, and the number of similar properties in the area, or I should say similar facilities in the area. So the dwelling will still operate as any other family home, and as advised in the committee report, a change from class C3 to C2 will not generally be considered material if it does not change the actual daily use and character of the property. And this is a matter of fact and degree in each case. So if there's no material impact as a result of the change, then a certificate of lawful development for a proposed use can be granted or applied for and granted. But in this case, given the characteristics of the proposed use and the application site and the context in which it's set, there could be some material impacts as a result of the development, hence why this is a full application for planning permission. So an assessment of impact on residential amenity, parking, highway safety, noise and disturbance has been carried out and is reported within the committee report and found to be acceptable. The number of similar facilities in the area is not a material planning consideration. There are no objections from statutory consultees, and the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions, including, importantly, condition 3, which seeks to ensure the development operates in accordance with a staff rota and changeover letter document, which was submitted and agreed with by County Highways. They were satisfied with that. The proposal set out in that letter would alleviate any parking issues. We have had one late letter of representation, but I've checked that and it doesn't raise any new issues to what have already been reported. So, like I said, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for your professional presentation, Janice, as always. Right, we have the applicant, Michelle Donner, here with us this evening. If you'd like to come forward, Michelle, obviously there's all those 58 objections that were written. Perhaps there's traffic, I don't know. So, Michelle, if you'd like to present to us, you've got 4 minutes. I'm not going to time you. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Hiya, I'm Michelle Donaghy. I'm representing Northridge Care Group in support of a planning application for the change of use on Selkirk Drive. Our proposal is to use Selkirk Drive to create a home for children between the age of 18 and 17 years, so 3 children in total in the home. The children are in need of a caring and supportive environment, often through no fault of their own, and our goal is to meet their needs in smaller homes where we can help them address the trauma and be able to achieve their potential. There's a high demand for the type of provision that we're proposing for at Selkirk Drive. I understand the community, and understandably they have some reservations. That's always the case, I think. There is a lot of bad press around children's homes, what the children living next door to them might be like. However, having worked in children's care for over 14 years myself, I wholeheartedly believe that that mindset's undeserved. Children in care are too often looked at by society as criminals rather than recognising that they're victims of tragic circumstances out of their control. Whilst we understand the initial concerns of local residents, we do wish to provide assurances to the committee that we are an experienced provider and that we are seeking to secure the best outcomes for children that we care for. We do wish to do so as good neighbours and active members of the local community as well, with the children attending local schools and groups wherever possible, and the home being run much like any other family home would be. As set out within the officer's report, there are no statutory consultee objections to the application, including the county highways, and whilst we're mindful of the local objections, we're confident that we have the procedures in place to be able to make sure that they won't become a reality. We're not therefore aware of any planning policy justification to refuse the application, and there are no outstanding technical issues, so we kindly ask that you as members support the officer recommendation to approve the change in use of application. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Councillor Lomax, then Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I am the ward councillor. I am the person who called this in because I was asked to. I didn't want to call it in because I think it's completely compliant, and I would welcome you into the area. The only time I may wish to talk to you is for inappropriate placements or care plans, in which case I don't mind chatting to you at all. The only area I could find to call it in really was on parking, which I did to give my fine residents the chance to discuss their issues. They are not here to discuss their issues, even though I informed them when the application was going to be discussed, and I propose that we accept it because everyone needs somewhere to live, and I deem this appropriate.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it's good to see the applicant come. It's obviously, traffic delays. It is disappointing when we get a raft of letters of complaint or objections to something, and people find it unable to attend. It can be a daunting task. I mean, anyone who has spoken from that side is there, so we'll give them that. I would like to second the proposal to approve this. I think we need to look after our children. I mean, I do know that County Council are also looking to forward at least 13 similar properties themselves. So it's obviously, if they're doing it, then they know that there is a need for this sort of thing, and we can't have the institutions that we used to have years ago with rows and rows of bunk beds and made out of metal and stuff like that. So a family type home is obviously the best thing for it. The parking issues, I understand there's a lot of movement, but it's going to be very small to when you think of the amount of Amazon vehicles and all that scoot around, and most of them are dented, so it obviously shows that they're quite busy. So again, I'd second approval for this, and I think it's a worthy cause, and well done for bringing it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Martin. Just obviously it's been a bit lengthy tonight. Have we got any other proposals? We have no other proposals, so the proposal from Councillor Lomax, who's the ward councillor, is for approval, seconded by Councillor Keith Martin. Northridge are a great company. I commend you for the fantastic work you do, really do. And the objectors, the 58 objectors who objected, don't see them for some reason. I just don't get it. So we can now go to the electronic vote on this. This is for approval of 16 Selkirk Drive, Walton-le-Dale, and they will be welcomed to the area. Okay, Taz, if you'd like to do the honours.
Thank you, Chair. So members have decided to approve with conditions the change of use to a children's home from use class C3 to C2 for 3 young people at, just trying to figure out the address, 16 Selkirk Drive. Thank you.
Okay, well done, Michelle. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, thanks very much for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to the subs. Just to remind members, there is a training scheduled for next Thursday, the 20th of June, and I think it's Greenbelt training, so really important that we all do our best to attend. Okay, thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure as always.